All right, everybody. Shout out to everybody in the chat, just showing some love. California, Atlanta. Hey, Andy, Paulette, Cheryl, everybody. So good to see y'all. We are in week 5 of the Air Amplify program. These days are the public sessions. We've had a cohort that has been doing great work to just fortify their shows and try to get listeners by any means necessary. And today we are in our week of media kits and one pagers and stuff like that. So we are focused on creators this time around. And that's what we're bringing to you every Thursday. So we have a chat with creators about how they do the thing. And because this world is non exhaustive, everyone does things a different way, and we just want to expose folks to as many people as possible. So here with us today we have two amazing guests doing amazing things, and also kind of sharing their work in a way that feels very natural to them. So I'm going to introduce them, and then we're going to get into this conversation about what's in their media kits. So our first guest, and also, hey guys, I'm TK. You could Google me, but the rest of y'all don't have to. All right. So, Blake File is an Ambie Award winning multidisciplinary artist. His latest body of work, All American Ruins, has been the recipient of numerous awards for its genre bending multimedia storytelling. With installations in 12 countries, we'll have to talk about that, including his recent on air fest program, The Sound of Ruins, that was featured in Forbes. In 2025, the podcast arm of the project Abandoned hit #1 on Apple Podcasts, Places, and Travel charts. And in 2026, the American Writing Awards named it Podcast of the Year. So, everybody give a little drop in emoji, wave at Blake, and I will tell y'all about our next guest. Hey, Blake.
Hi everyone. It's nice to I literally realized as you started letting people in that it was the thing where you can't see people, so I'm just pretending I can see
Yes.
everyone. But it's
Which is
nice
what
to
we always do in audio and radio.
right. Nice
Everyone's
to
there. We're just talking to ourselves.
yeah. Anyway, nice to
Um,
see everyone.
Thanks so much, Blake. And now we have Scott Gurian, a Peabody and Murrow Award winning journalist, audio producer, and host of Far From Home, a documentary podcast where he reports fascinating stories from his travels to far flung parts of the world like Iran, Chernobyl, Peru, and Mongolia. I have questions about Chernobyl offline. Um, the show was recently named Best Indie Podcast by the New York City Podcast Awards and has received top honors from the North American Travel Journalists Association and the Society of American Travel Writers, among other places. And does many more things, as does Blake. I'm going to just bring you down to the stage. Come on down, Scott. Come on down, Blake.
We're here. We did it.
We did it. Well, let's get into it. I I saw y'all all over the internet, but I met y'all at the New York City Podcast Awards. We all were esteemed company to each other, and what an honor. And ever since then, I've seen you more and more and more, which is a testament to being outside with the work. Um, and that kind of curiosity drove me both of your website, me and Casper, and we're like, man, who's gonna talk about the thing, right? Because I think this thing about media kits, what you're putting in it, what does it mean, and just give you a little context, on Tuesday, everyone in our cohort was learning about one pagers, like presenting to potential press, sponsors, guests forward, or whatever have you. And you guys made an interesting decision to each share like the body of your work, like the info, the awards, the who said something nice about you, like to share that publicly on your website. So can y'all start there and talk about why each of you decided to share your all your stuff that way?
Yeah.
There we go. Sure.
Scott, why don't you start?
Oh, okay. Either way, yeah. I mean, I feel like every podcast should have some sort of media kit or press kit somewhere. I've found it really helpful on a number of different occasions. Basically, whenever I'm contacting someone to get any kind of publicity for my podcast, if I'm pitching myself as a guest on someone else's podcast or radio program, if I'm pitching my show for like someone to review it or include it in a list, like you'll see like best podcasts to listen to on a road trip or for the summer season or whatever best travel podcast that, you see these listicles often a lot of places do. So I'll pitch my show for that. If I'm dealing with any sort of PR people, they'll often specifically ask for a media kit or a press kit. So you want to kind of be prepared for that circumstance. And it's also a page of my website where people could download trailers or promos of my show, as well as like photos if they want to use if they're writing an article about me or my show. So I'll just point them there. And it's also useful if I'm just to provide some background about myself and what I do. If I'm contacting someone to book an interview, like I want to interview them, but they want to know who's this person reaching out to me. So that's kind of a one-stop shop to send them. Because people lead busy lives, especially if you're contacting like a PR type person. They may be getting dozens or even hundreds of emails, and you can't just say, well, go listen to my podcast. Like, it's, you can't necessarily expect them to listen, or like I've put out over 100 episodes. Like, where do they even start? They might listen to the most recent, but I feel like maybe the most recent episode isn't necessarily my strongest work or representative of my show overall. So I'll send out this press kit, which kind of is a summary of everything, and I include in there like links to some of my favorite episodes, and also just the promo or trailer, which is kind of the summary of everything I do. So yeah, so I have this media kit on my website, and then also as a PDF version, which I'll show people so they could download it, or sometimes I'll just attach it to an email when I'm contacting someone, that summarizes all the information kind of in one place, concisely. And mine could probably be a little more concise, but it's still better than just looking at the whole breadth of my work. Like, you need to
Yeah.
kind of give a snapshot somehow.
So you have the website version, and then you have a shorter PDF version.
No, the PDF. I mean, when people go to the media kit on the page, there's a link right at the top where they
Oh,
can
just
click to
turn it into.
download it. But then also sometimes I'll just proactively email that to someone, the PDF, when I'm contacting someone, and it pretty
Okay.
much contains all the same information on the website, except for not the promos and trailers, because those are big files that, they could just access them online. But as far as like the text and the photos, that's all in the PDF.
Okay. Cool. Thank you, Blake.
Yeah, I basically everything that Scott just said. Well, and actually, I want to go back. TK, you made out like a bandit at the New York City Podcast Awards. It was just like every other award. It was like The Secret Life of TK Dudaz. I was like, yes, yes, yes. Who's this person? So it was really
Just
cool to meet you there.
I'm like, not a bandit. Bandits are three and up. Two, like a fat rat. Like,
And I just to kind of build on what Scott was saying about the media kit and the press book. When I have a funky little show. It is not what you think of when you think of like the word podcast is not something that sort of necessarily fits within people's understanding of that word when they listen to my show. And I had a really sort of like top dog podcaster tell me pretty early on when I was building this body of work, um, you're never going to have like a huge audience, right? And I guess I could have felt that it was sobering, but it was actually the best thing that could have happened to me. And so I like took a step back. I looked at what the show was and I was like, oh, I just need to understand what my legitimacy is here. I need to understand how my voice fits into the grander scheme of the podcast industry. And if I'm gonna find an audience, I'm gonna have to put in some serious work. And so it's funny, I just went to go see the great Temple Grandin. I don't know if y'all know who Temple Grandin is, but she's this extraordinary scientist and thinker. And she was going on and on at this talk about having like a catalog of your work. And that's really where press books came in handy for me because I would forget all of the things that I had thrown the spaghetti at the wall at. And I needed a place to keep track of my own stuff, in addition to being able to, offer festivals, journalists, et cetera, like the legitimacy of my show and why people should care about it. And so I think a media kit really answers that question before anybody has to ask it.
And then just the public, because I feel like we just kind of sometimes we feel like, oh well, okay, so I have my description and I have my trailer and I have all these other assets, and if
Mhm.
I am I doing too much, if I add this other part, and should I just attach it as a PDF and keep this info private, this other info private, like I'm just curious about y'all's decision to like just be so public with it, because also I'll say that me and Casper also in looking for folks to have this conversation with, there's a lot of things, not just this topic, but there's a lot of topics that it was hard for us to discern who's doing it in podcasting in
Mm.
production,
Mm.
because no one was sharing that part. It was either I'm a producer and I'm a host, but no one was saying like, "Hey, I also take care of these parts of the show." And y'all are
Mhm.
like, "No, I take care of this part of the show as well. I built this media kit. You're gonna look at it, damn it." Like, what
Mhm.
what was that decision to make it public, like to all eyes?
Mm. Um, I take a lot of pride in my work. And I, up until this particular body of work, I hadn't ever felt that way, but I'd never felt confident about my own voice in the stratosphere. And then suddenly, I don't know what it was, but I had this like wake up call where I was like, "Girl, you have talent, you have a voice, you have something to say. Don't be so afraid of telling people about your greatness." And I think that people get this idea that it's somehow cocky or like this, that, and the other thing. And I don't know, whatever. I guess if that's I don't think about that stuff anymore. I want people to hear my show. I am like desperate for people to hear my work. And I think it deserves as many ears as possible. And in order to do that for my particular situation, because it is such a kooky little show, I had to have some sort of living, breathing document that offered journalists a way to understand the story, sponsors to understand my audience, festival programmers to understand the merit of the art, event organizers to like understand the live experience of it all, et cetera, et cetera. But most importantly, it's just another way for me to offer listeners this understanding of why what I do matters.
Yeah.
Scott, you want to add to
I
that?
would
Yes.
say, I mean, I don't have any qualms at all about sharing any of this. I mean, I think the purpose of the Media Kit is really to reach media and PR people and press people. I mean, sure, if my listeners want to look at it, they're totally welcome to. But the target audience, like the real reason I made it is to help me get publicity for what I do. And obviously, if I'm going to do that, I need to tell them why I think my show is great or why other people think it's great, just to put a summary of the awards I've gotten or the nice things people said about the show. Um, because that's really the only way to it adds legitimacy to what I do. It's not just me saying, oh, I think it's great. Like other people have given me awards or said nice things as well. And I feel like I should kind of collect that in one place.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that's again, if you contact any kind of media outlets or PR people, like a lot of times they're expecting this. They're asking, can you send me your press kit or whatever? So you kind
Don't be
of,
shy.
if you're trying to get publicity, you have no choice. You kind of have to have, you really should have something like that ready. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I jumped the gun a little bit, but I would love for you guys to tell us about your shows, and then we'll go back into the convo. We'll love to start with you, Scott.
Sure. Yes. So I have a background. I worked in public radio for a couple decades, actually, and then I left to kind of I wanted to do my own thing back in 2016. So I've been making it for 10 years now. I really wanted to do more kind of international reporting and travel because that's always been my passion. I feel like the most interesting stories I've covered have been when I've been in another country, another culture, kind of totally immersing myself a little bit out of my comfort zone and just learning totally new things and seeing my own country from an outsider's perspective. So it initially started out with So the quick story is my brother and I would take a big trip every year over Christmas and New Year's, and we didn't have a lot of close family in the area. We figured we might as well go somewhere. And then one year we went to Thailand and Cambodia. One year we went dog sledding in Alaska. One year we went to Cuba, and we don't usually do tours, but that year we decided to just because of the logistics of getting around Cuba. We had a really bad tour guide who kind of got drunk and abandoned our tour group one evening, and so in the absence of a tour guide, all of us in the tour group kind of bonded and we kept in touch after we left, and we had set up a little Facebook group for us. And there was this one woman on the tour, Rosie, who's a little bit older than my brother and me, and she's British, but she now lives in Australia and very adventurous. And she contacted my brother and me a number of months later and said, "Hey, I'm planning on going on this crazy road trip for charity with my best friend Jane. We're going to get this little crappy little car, drive from the UK to Mongolia." It's called the Mongol Rally. It's an annual event. And would you and your brother like to join us? And I said, well, that sounds amazing. And right away, I said, I need to make a podcast about this. Like, not just the journey itself, but all the months and months of planning and preparation that went into a journey like that, driving 11,000 miles. And then when I got to the end, I decided to drive all the way back. So it ended up being 18,000 miles round trip. So the whole first season of my show was documenting that journey, actually bringing, the recorder with me. A lot of times having to record kind of undercover because you're going through places like Iran and Tajikistan and kind of authoritarian places where I couldn't openly record. So sometimes I'm just recording on my cell phone. But really using the power of audio to its full potential where, audio transports you places. So I'm not just sitting in my hotel or Airbnb at the end of the day talking about what I did, but I'm recording along the way. So you hear as our car overheats in the middle of the desert in Iran, as these shady traffic cops stop us in Tajikistan and are trying to extract a bribe from us when we had to get, we got lost and had to get rescued by the Mongolian National Emergency Management Agency. Like this is all on tape. And, so people listen, they say, oh, I feel like the biggest compliment people give me is like, oh, I feel like I was there with you, so that's really what I try to do through my reporting to like take people places and just collect all the sounds and through good field notes and writing and everything to convey a sense of the place and the story. So anyway, that was my whole first season, was documenting that journey. And then ever since then I've continued like individual stories from my travels. Like I said, I drove back after I got to Mongolia, so I went, I stopped in Chernobyl along the way you were asking about, which is the eeriest, most fascinating place
Yeah.
I've ever been to. I went to Tuva, took a Tuvan throat singing lesson. I've been, ever since then, over the last decade, I've been to Peru, went to an ayahuasca ceremony. I've been to Japan and like all kinds of. I like to go off the beaten path to kind of unusual places. So yeah, so I make my show, and then a lot of times I'll pitch stories to other like bigger podcasts and I'll get some publicity out of that. So places like 99% Invisible or Planet Money. So they'll air one of my stories on their show. And then they also say, hey, if you like this, you should check out Scott's podcast, which is always
Okay.
helpful. I get a little bump in listeners from that. So yeah, that's pretty much what I do.
So I'm gonna jump in and then we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna go to Blake. And
Yep.
so you wow, first of all, I'm looking forward to listening more. So now you make the show, you have all your assets up, you have your media kit, like I'm always gonna bring it back around to that, right? And you're pitching yourself to other shows, bigger
Mm-hmm.
shows, cause yeah, like this is an opportunity to sell smaller snippets and
Mm-hmm.
then circle that back. So in all of that, are you sending like are you sending like these kind of assets out to these people as well? Like you're like, hey, I have an idea. Plus, you want to see more? Go over here. Like, what's the conversation? How are we starting that
Yeah, I mean, it
conversation?
depends on the circumstance. I mean, a lot of times I'm pitching like a new story to one of those because they usually want to air something original. So I'll work with them to do the story, and then I'll also air it on my own show. I did have a circumstance recently where 99% Invisible actually reran a story from my own podcast that I'd already produced on my own on their show. So, once you do one story, you get a working relationship with an editor or someone. So then, you don't need to reintroduce yourself every
Right.
time.
Yeah.
But certainly if I was, starting from scratch and I didn't have any kind of working relationship with someone, I would probably send them
Hmm.
a copy of my media kit to just introduce myself, say who this is who I am, this is what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Blake. Talk to us. Tell us more about All American Ruins.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I grew up in the mountains of Colorado, and there was this abandoned dairy farm down the hill from the house I grew up in. And when I was 5 years old, my father took my brother and I to go just kind of wander the property. And I noticed there was this break in one of the doors that had this gap where I was like, I can fit through that gap. I went back the following day because it was the 90s, so it was fuck all in terms of kids going out and doing whatever they wanted. And I shimmied right on into that abandoned dairy farm at the age of 5. And when I stood up in this space, which was like a time capsule, it was literally just it looked like the place had been raptured. Immediately, it flipped on this piece of my imagination that hadn't quite turned on yet, and it turned into this sanctuary for me. And so I frequented that dairy farm um, for basically my entire upbringing. And then fast forward to the pandemic, it was a funky time those first few months. I think people were really, well, I can speak for myself. I was really scared. And I had this dream about that dairy farm and was like, oh, I wonder if there are abandoned buildings in this, area of the Hudson Valley where I live. And sure as shit, there's a lot of them. And so I kind of started like creeping out and exploring these spaces. And then I started journaling about it. And then I work at this radio station part-time up here, and the executive director, he's also like a purveyor of abandoned spaces. And he was like, yo, you should make a podcast. And I was like, that is a great idea, even though I had never made a podcast before. And I was like, you know what I'm going to do? So many of my friends want to go with me into these spaces because I love audio storytelling so much just as an audience member. I'm going to build immersive audio stories and bring people into these spaces with me. And then was like, oh, I don't actually know how to do that. And so I think the thing that I've really appreciated about building this podcast series, which by the way, it is under a much larger banner called All American Ruins. So the podcast itself is the flagship audio series under this broader body of work that includes the original photo essays, but also includes a docu-series, and now a live performance piece that I've been working on for the past year. Um, and the audio series seemed to be the thing that people dug the most. And I didn't know what I was doing at the beginning, and I spent hours and hours and hours in the studio at the radio station, just like moving knobs and buttons and doing all the things that we do as artists to figure our things out. And so I feel like the first 2 seasons, it's so fun to go back and listen to them and hear the improvement of what I've done. I think it's really rewarding. And I think by like the first couple episodes of season 3, I'd kind of gotten a hang of what I was doing. But it's the episodes aren't just me navigating through the space and talking about the history or like their cultural implications, but it's also going back to that childhood mysterious experience of going inside of these abandoned spaces and letting my imagination kind of run wild. So I'm also taking folks inside my imagination as I wander through these spaces. And it's a really, really fun way to kind of weave in personal journals and reflect on what I'm watching happening in the world right now, particularly the United States. And just figuring out how abandoned buildings kind of speak to the underbelly of a history that I think is actively trying to be erased, and I don't want that to happen. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
I love both of y'all's work and what y'all are doing, and also how you have encompassed it in your regular body of work, right? Like the things you do, and then this show, and it's an extension of y'all. So the question I want to get into, so media kits and all, I'm gonna ask one of y'all to answer this one, and then one of y'all to answer the next one. So, Scott, um,
Okay.
your top line media kit, like things that everybody needs to have in there. Like what are your top line things? What should we have in there?
I mean, just the basic who, what, when,
Yeah.
where, why, if someone just a snapshot, they've never heard of my show before, know nothing at all about it, just a little bit about who I am, what the mission or what the show is about, um, and like why I make it, just a little bit of my thinking, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Any kind of praise I received for the show, just like the highlights of, any positive, well, media coverage, and then reviews I've gotten, both like write-ups as well as I even include like a few of my favorite, like Apple podcast reviews, things like that, promos and trailers, things like that. And media assets like promotional photos for people to download. That doesn't necessarily need, sometimes that could be a separate thing, not in the media kit itself, but I include it all on my webpage.
Yeah.
And then links to social media, where people could,
Yeah.
listen to the show, read more about it, that kind of thing.
That sounds right. I was just testing you.
I
Okay,
passed.
so then you got it, 100%. And I'm gonna put that in the chat. This was my shorthand. Who, what, praise, reviews, trailers, and assets. If you have anything, y'all, or nothing, go get these things and then put them somewhere. Okay, so now Blake, lightning round. What do you think is the most underestimated part of a media kit? And you can chime in, Scott, if there's more that Blake's missing.
Lightning round answer. I think positioning yourself to the world as to how what you do is different and why it's different. And I think it can be a really, really brief narrative. Um, and yeah, that's actually it.
Why you're different. Why you're different. Yes. Figure out your value proposition. Scott, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I think the whole point is to give yourself legitimacy, like to show why, this is why you should listen or check it out, or what, it's not just me saying it, but other people are also saying they like the show. And
Yeah.
yeah, make it sound like, it's not just a Mickey Mouse operation, like it's worthwhile. Yeah.
And we have a question from the Q&A box. Tanya asks, when did you realize you needed a press kit? Like when you needed it. And did you have it right like prior to launch, or did you wait till you had amassed some work a season or two in? Where did you start?
I don't remember exactly when. I mean, I didn't have it at the very beginning. It's a little hard at the very beginning before you've
Right.
had any reviews or coverage or anything. Um, I mean, you could fill it out later on as you get more to add to it. Um, I don't know if it was probably, it might have been when I was contacting someone and they asked me to send them a press kit, and then I was like, I had to kind of scramble to find one. I think what I did was, I don't know if people know the Bellow Collective. They have a lot of really helpful articles. I think I was using their information originally, and I can post the link in a chat. But if you just search around also, you'll find tons of information like, how do I make a podcast press kit or media kit? Hold on, I'm paste. I don't know why it's not letting me paste in the chat. Let me try that again. But they gave some really good kind of information, and I pretty much just followed what they did, and there we go. And have added more over time. And I'm always constantly updating it. If I get a new award or a new whatever, or if I do a new season, and then I'll put the latest trailer or promo in there. And then it's always cumbersome because I got to remember, okay, I changed the online one, but then I also need to go and update the PDF as well. So if they download that, that's also up to date.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So download both. And Tanya found that link for you.
yeah,
So
and I posted as well. Yeah. Oh,
perfect.
did I just send it to Casper? Whoops, I meant
You
to
might
send
have
it to
just sent it
everyone.
to
Let
us.
me
Yeah.
change it to everyone. Okay, there we go. Okay, going
And
forward. Yes, but
then
that's it. Thank you.
Blake, when did you know, or did you just start?
Yeah, a cool podcast publicist called me out on it. She was like, "Where's your media kit?" And I was like, "I didn't know I needed one." So, it was season 3 is when I started to put it together, and I break them down by season. Yeah, so like I'd say 3 years into to making the show.
So you had to go backwards and find your
Hmm.
stuff. And so then how
Hmm.
was excavating all that content?
Well, I had collected everything on the on my website. So it wasn't it wasn't as much of a hardship as I just made it sound, but I had to retranslate everything into like a press kit format so it read more of a narrative instead of like information right off the bat.
Okay. Before we go into show and tell, because I would love you guys to pull up your pages and just kind of scroll through it with us. Cheryl's asking, have you found that having a media kit has helped you get press passes to meet folks that you wanted to invite onto your shows?
Mm.
Mm. Have you guys used it in that way?
I My show doesn't involve any kind of
Yeah,
guests
me too.
unless I'm profiling somebody who's like big in the architectural reclamation space, which sounds really intense, but it has definitely helped me get into events just to meet people in the space, and to book programs like what I just did at On Air Fest back in February. That was helpful to get that gig.
Okay, perfect. Scott, what about
Yeah,
you? Are you using
I
it
don't
to
really
get
have, I don't
some?
normally have guests either on my
Yeah,
show. I usually use it just to kind of get publicity
yeah,
or yeah, stuff like that, right?
yeah. But for those of you thinking, try it. You never know. Yeah, like you
Yeah,
might end up in the same place at the same time as the same person that you're trying to get. So
yeah, Cheryl, I wish I could see your face, but I would say, yeah, give it a shot. You really never know. It's spaghetti on the wall. I really believe that.
yeah. So let's pull up some docs. Who wants to go first, Blake or Scott?
I can I
You could
can
go. Sure.
go.
Take-
I hit share and then I hit share. Can y'all see this?
I think it's coming. There it
There,
is.
yes.
It's
Yeah.
up. Okay. Well, first of all, I use the power of the almighty Canva. And I think everyone should be using Canva if they're not marketing people, because it's a really easy way to teach yourself how to be a better marketer for your own work. And so I don't know, I guess we can just start with the title page and then I'll pause. I had no qualms about asking people for press quotes. And David Krasnow at the New Yorker Radio Hour, he was the first person that gave me a quote, and that was because he lives up here. I had gone old school and taken postcards and stuck them in every single car that I could possibly find in the city of Kingston. And it turns out he happened to be one of the cars that I stuck the postcard in. And so he listened to the show, and then we accidentally met each other at a coffee shop, and he we figured out that he had the postcard on him actually. And so at that point I was like, did you have you listened to the show? And he was like, yep. And I was like, would you be willing to give me a press quote? And he was like, yep. And so I think it's good to start with that just so people can like see something punchy at the beginning. Couple award thingies, the Apple Podcast feature, and then just like the basic information about how to contact me, and who helps me make the show. Should I keep going or?
Yeah, yeah, feel free. I
Okay.
think the press quotes thing was so T. Thank you for sharing that because my I just went, oh shit, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think
Yeah.
what happens too is a lot of people thank you for doing something proactive like sticking your thing in people's windshields because people they if they listen they know you so you know you and we keep on doing the like oh please rate and review and or you know we can grab a quote from a write-up and that's cool but the that manufactured serendipity that Ariel was talking
I
about in the
love
chat
that.
you got to do that. And I think like sometimes my friends will be like a fancy person, but in my head they're not fancy people. And I'm like, "Oh, you just left me a voice note that I think you should just copy and paste this transcription. I'm gonna just copy and paste this transcription because you just like just said a
Hmm.
really nice thing about it." And you just like put that into perspective for me just by saying that one little thing. So let's see what else you got. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, and like I got over asking people for things, because you're not. I love what Ariel said about manufactured serendipity. That is amazing. Um, and so yeah, second page just kind of like brings people into the the 1 to 2 sentence description of the show. You wanna, as hard as you can, and I could probably do better about this, but like keep your copy really condensed. People don't read anymore, which is super unfortunate. But then I just also wanted to like show people like here's what's happened with the show so far. Just so they're like, ooh, laurels, that must mean it's worth listening to. And also just making sure that they know that it's part of a bigger body of work up here in the corner, which people may or may not see, and then right into the work. And so what's cool about Canva is you can embed your player right into the actual like document. And so if I hit play, the trailer will happen, um, showing folks that here's who I am, here's the number of seasons that I've gotten. And I hope everyone, because I copied a template and then just kind of made it my own. So please feel free to steal this. I'll put because it's kind of a bitch of a link. I'll put it in the chat. Um, and then for this particular season, because I am extending out of the podcast format and moving into this live performance space, I really wanted to show people how I myself am reimagining what it means to be an independent audio maker. And so I did a lot of thinking about what that looks like and just gave people a breakdown about how I am reimagining being an independent audio artist in an age where we're all talking about YouTube and video. That's not something that's necessarily um, something that I can do. So how do I stand out differently? I gave people the breakdown with the 4 reasons that my show is different. And then diving right into the season, every single one of these is a hyperlink to the Apple Podcast episode. And so, as Scott was saying, I'm updating it in real time as I'm releasing episodes. Um, Takes folks through the season. Here's more about me. Here's what I do. Here are the guest hosts. Here's a little bit about them. Here's the overarching body of work. Here are some logos. Click here to download them if you want them. And then press links, and then nice things that people have said about the work. And then contact. And that's pretty much it.
Wow. Yeah, that's dope, yo. And I like that you approach it like it's a book. It's more than one page. It's a body of work. It's
Yeah.
encompassing of a whole bunch of other things. And and even if I left on page 3, I already got enough info.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know.
Yeah.
Thank you for
And
sharing.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, you were gonna say something. We want all the tea.
Well, no, it was just to sort of amplify what you just said. Like, you have to give people information immediately, or they are gonna go to Jupiter. Like, they're not gonna stick with it. And it's weird because my show is asking folks to do the literal opposite of the day and age that we're in, and be mindful and sit for 20 minutes and like listen.
Yeah,
Um, so I have to, it's a constant battle, but it's fun. It's also like a challenge, and I like a challenge.
yeah. Thank you, Scott. Come on down.
Okay. Okay. So Blake's putting me to shame a little bit because my what I make is his is way prettier than mine. I should really probably use Canva at some point. But I will, I just kind of hold on, let me pull this up here. Okay, do you see that? Okay. So this is my web page. How do I
Oh, there it is. Yep.
okay, I think sorry. There we go. Okay. So on my page, so how do I move? Give me 1 second. There we go. Um, so on my page under the About section, so I have a full page on my website where I have something kind of about the show, and then a little bit about me, the producer. So there's kind of longer versions of this, and then media coverage where I have a bunch of like snippets of just like Blake was saying, where he didn't have to totally do everything from scratch when he made the media kit because it all exists elsewhere on the website somewhere. But then the media kit is kind of the just kind of the highlights of some of that. And it is very text heavy, which it probably should not be. As Blake was saying, is people don't read so much anymore, but I should pare this down quite a lot. But I have sections where, and you'll see right at the top, downloadable version of the media kit available here. So that's where people could click to get the PDF, which sometimes I'll just even proactively just email, attach to an email and send to them. But there's a section about the show where people could find the show with, my links, email, places people could listen, social media links. Here's trailers and promos. I think of a trailer as kind of a promo is shorter than a trailer. A trailer is kind of maybe a minute or longer a lot of times, and it just kind of dives in more versus if I'll do promo swaps with other shows a lot of times, and that's usually a shorter kind of thing they want. And I'll do a promo for each season, usually, or I'm trying to think what I do. No, I guess I've switched it up, but there's ones for particular seasons, but then there's an evergreen one as well for the whole show. There's a little bit about so I linked to some of my favorite episodes so people could hear those. A little bit about me as the host, and then a section with awards I've gotten. And again, this could probably be a lot more concise. Some highlights of some media coverage I've gotten, and then some of my favorite like quotes people have given and listener comments. Again, is very text heavy. I need to work on that. And I actually linked to more of, so I used to have, well, Chartable, the people, I don't know if people know Chartable, it doesn't exist anymore. So, it just collected all of like Apple podcast reviews in one place from all the various Apple podcasts, all the different countries, not just the American ones.
Yeah.
So it's cool that it's in one place. So right now it's just linking to the Wayback Machine. I should probably make a PDF with that, which will look prettier.
Yeah, just in case the
Um,
Wayback Machine goes away too.
you never know. Right, right, right. But I didn't want to lose all that because people
Yeah,
said some really great things. So and then at the bottom is the assets, just the gallery of links people could download. I say you could download them or images available upon request. And yeah, that's
yeah,
basically everything. Like I said, it's a very different style than it should probably be a lot prettier. I'm also in the process of redoing my whole website. It just
yeah.
kind of threw this together on Squarespace many years ago, and I'm working with a web designer to move it over to what you would call it, not Squarespace.
Uh,
What's
what,
the other, what does everyone build their sites on?
oh, I'm on still on Squarespace,
What
so
what's
I'm
what's your site on, Blake? What your website? What
I'm
platform?
on I'm on Weebly, which I think is owned
Oh,
by
okay.
Square.
Oh, really?
there's
Okay.
Wix,
No.
WordPress.
Yeah, WordPress. That's what I'm thinking of.
Oh,
Right.
you
Yeah. A
use
lot of
Word.
people just build their, that's like the
Yeah.
bare bones. Because the problem with Squarespace is you don't really own the site. Like they have everything and it's really hard to transfer it over. Whereas if it's on WordPress, like I own all the files, I could always move it easily to anywhere else. So it's a
Okay.
little bit more work up front, apparently, but it'll be
Right.
much better. So,
And then
um,
someone suggested Beamly. There's a lot of folks giving
Beamly, I'm not familiar with that. Okay. Uh,
options. But I love the website. I love your site, and I honestly I think that like it's very illustrative of what your show is right off the bat, and then the media kit. I
yeah.
like we were all talking about everyone does stuff different, but
Yeah.
having something is the having something.
Anything's better than nothing. Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
please
Definitely.
everybody get it
Yes.
together. And I'm
Yes.
talking to myself too, y'all. I need to get it together, but I'm working on it. This is my first season too. So the power, can we talk about like y'all have the power of testimonials and reviews and stuff, y'all have kind of gone through that. Has that ever, because we're screaming from the mountaintop, rate and review, have those helped you to like net out in terms of people paying you some attention, like people that can like write or critique you in other ways?
I took a page out of Casey Musgrave's book actually, and I screenshotted my worst reviews, the ones where people called me a snowflake, and I blasted them on Instagram, and it like got me a ton of traction actually. So I think I might end up making merch with screenshots of my worst, like the people who call me a little snowflake Democrat, because I think it's funny. But it also did help me get more listeners because friends sent it to friends who sent it to friends, and then suddenly it was like I had this whole new you know, audience, which was cool. But yeah, I mean, the review, subscribe thing is it's tricky. That's a tricky thing. You have to say it, but like, is anybody listening to that part of it? I don't know, maybe, but like, for the format's sake, you kind of gotta always say it. And you never know. You might make somebody mad enough that they do go to Apple Podcasts and they do take the time to give you the 1 star. And God bless them, because I don't got that kind of time.
What about you, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's all just about giving legitimacy to what you do, and yeah, if I contact someone and it's not just me, saying, hey, you should, book me or feature me or whatever, but I, could say, hey, these people have these nice things to say, or especially as you do this a while, and if you get kind of well known, like I've been written up the Washington Post and the Guardian and places like that I think really helps to have,
Yeah.
because that mean something to people.
Yeah. You know what I tell my friends that they'll call me and they'll say nice things, but they won't write the thing because they
Mhm.
think that like mainlining it to you is the thing, and I'm like, no, no. And I just say, friends, I love you, but don't gatekeep me.
Right.
Don't keep other people from finding out about me because we're just in this chat together. But you can help me 10x if you just say it to a bunch of strangers. But anyway, that's just me griping
Yeah,
here.
well, the Guardian, I don't know if they still do this, but they had this podcast column, and so they would have nice write-ups, feature podcasts. I first contacted them and said, "Hey, do you want to feature my show?" But they said, "Well, no, we need someone, not just you, but someone else to kind of write something." So I reached out to a friend of mine who was like a regular listener and loved my show, and I said, "Hey, could I ask a big favor? Would you mind writing something to send to them?"
Yeah.
And that seemed to work. And then he wrote a pretty good review, and they featured his review, and then they added a line at the end. They said, "A brilliant listen," which is very British. Um,
It
and so yeah, so it worked. So yeah, don't be
works.
ashamed to reach out to your supporters or
Um,
friends, family, whoever.
So we have another question, and I want to make sure folks know this is the time. Drop your questions in the little Q&A box or the chat. I am looking at that as well. Another question from Tanya. Can you differentiate between an emailable pitch deck and a media kit? How much crossover is there?
Hmm. I would say like at the core, a media kit is here's who I am, and a pitch deck is here's why you should say yes to me.
Right.
So it's like a reference versus a persuasion, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I have the PDF version of my press kit, but it's basically the same as the press kit, but in PDF form. But yeah, that's different than a pitch deck. You're trying to pitch for, like, you're a podcast network and you should, or you're an advertiser, you should advertise on my show, or that's kind of a different purpose that a pitch deck would serve. Yeah.
The people, Blake, they want you to say that thing again. There it
Oh
is.
yeah, I was just typing it. So a media kit, I think of it as like here's who I am, and like here's the reference to, here's a reference of it, and then the pitch deck is here's why you should say yes to me. So like a persuasion document.
Okay, awesome. Um, Last call for alcohol. Any more questions, folks, while we get into these last moments? And for our cohort, don't forget, we'll go back to our private chat and talk a little bit more with Scott and Blake after this. Let's see. Okay. Also, when you have heard back, I mean, besides getting the con, like getting the piece of press or getting the outcome you want, or even if you haven't gotten the outcome you want, have you ever gotten direct feedback from an entity, you know, about your show based on the what you sent them, whether or not it it you know, went your way?
I
I'm
recall.
sorry, TK, can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah. Have you ever gotten any feedback from like an entity, whether or not it's gone your way, you know?
Oh, you like on the media kit specifically?
Yeah, or like, what parts like well what are they looking for, you know? Like should are they just skipping to the, are they skipping to the promos? Are they skipping to the, what are they
Yeah,
remarking?
it's for sure. I think the thing that I get the biggest feedback on is my actual branding. Um, it's an identifier, and so people see that masking tape with my actual handwriting on it, and immediately they know that that's my show. I probably get more compliments on my branding than I do my actual show. And I'm proud of that because that was like a last minute thought. But I think logos really can be important. And please don't use AI to make a logo. I beg of you. Please don't do that. Use your creativity.
Yeah. It could A bad regular one is better than the best AI one. So there's also that. Oh, Scott, did you have anything to add? I have a
No, I
question.
mean, logos are important. It's
Yeah.
worth. I have a friend who's. I had an old logo which I just kind of was just stock art with I
Yeah.
wrote "Far From Home" across it or whatever. But I had a friend who was a designer who actually knew what he was doing, and I think the logo is the first like image people have of first impressions of the program. So I think that's worth, spending a little money on or just getting someone who really knows what they're doing to make for you. I highly recommend it. Yeah, don't use AI.
Yeah. We have a question from Robert. Um, and I think this will definitely vary, but do you guys have a preferred timeline for sending or posting these, marketing items, especially for a new launch? So your brand new show or you're about to start a new season, how early do you send these things out and put these in the world?
Um, I can say, Robert, that I'm trigger happy, and I wish that when I first started doing this, that I had really like taken my time because I think we're living in a world where like everything needs to feel rushed and like you got to get it out and you got to send the email and you got to get the and the thing is that yes, there's an importance to speed, but I also think there's so much more importance to mindfulness. And so I think before you launch anything, you really have to make sure that you've got everything prepared. And like don't leave any stone unturned because again, I'm trigger happy and there have been times where like I've sent a thing and then a person has written back and been like, "Where's this thing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't even have that thing yet." So, I don't know if it's a preferred timeline so much as just like making sure that I know absolutely 110% everything is ready to go before I launch. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think all of us, I mean, we're really producers and reporters and journalists, and we want to kind of make the thing, but there's the whole kind of marketing part of it and all that whole thing and updating the website, which is not, my favorite part, but it's and not necessarily the thing that I'm strongest at, but it's super important because you can make the best thing in the world, but if you don't kind of promote it, then no one will know it exists. And so I really wish, even before my first season, that I had, instead of just rushing to get it out, that I had really spent more time and work kind of promoting it. I feel like it would have gotten a much bigger audience. So yeah, I highly recommend. I agree with Blake that if you have, because every place is different, they have their own timeline, but like releasing my last season, and it's like the day before I was emailing this podcast newsletter and saying, "Hey, do you want?" And they said, "No, we have this deadline. We needed at least this certain amount of time ahead of time." And I could have gotten a nice spike in publicity and possible listeners out of that if I had just promoted it, if I built out that timeline more. So I highly recommend trying to kind of plan all that out. Yeah.
And then just a follow up also from Robert. Do you have a order that you do things in? Do you like to have I don't know, certain assets first, or send out certain assets first, and then you follow up with this other thing, or, based on it, have they replied? Okay, if they replied, then I'll do this. And, like, is there order of operations, or you just like, I just got to get it all in one place? I have one chance, send it and send it.
Yeah, I mean, I do have like an organizational document. And I have reminders set in my phone. So once a week, I get a reminder that tells me to update my website and to update my press book because I can't keep up with it otherwise. And it is really important that you keep up with it because like someone could come to your press book and you could have like two episodes with links available, but then you forgot to update and your whole season is already out. And so I think it really is just like setting up a system for yourself that really I think people underestimate the power of personal systemization. And I am even before you go to the marketing, you have to set up a system that works for you and like document it as a standard of procedure so that you are constantly recycling every single week what needs to get updated. But then I think the basics, like making sure that you have like a really basic press release uh, to start, and there was one other thing I was gonna say. Oh, and like spreadsheets are queen forever. Spreadsheets for life.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, if anything, last call. This is on you, Scott. Take us home.
Yeah, no, no, I agree. I mean, yeah, the more because I there's so many different kind of moving parts, and I write myself, reminders on the calendar, or I have a document with a to-do list of, things I need to do because I know the production part, but it's all these other parts of the marketing and the website updates and things that tend to fall by the wayside that I need to, remind myself about. And yeah, if I'm contacting someone, a publicity person or whatever, I mean, I try to send all that in one go and in a PDF because that you usually have just one chance. Like you can't kind of trickle stuff in time. They just you contact them once and that's usually, I mean, sometimes they'll ask for something else, but for the most part, I try to include it all concisely in that one press kit or on that one link I send them to. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And okay, I had a thing, but I forgot what I was gonna say. But that's okay because Cheryl has summed us up in the chat. This has been a wonderful power hour. Thank you all. Literally quotes from the chat right now.
I'll put that on my
So
website in my press kit.
oh, wait a minute. We have a raised hand. We can't get you on the screen, Rolando. So if you have a question, now's the time. If you want to type it up real quick. Or can you? Oh, you can get on the screen. Hello, Rolando. Come on down. And then this will be our last one. And then cohort, we'll take five and meet y'all in the other Zoom with our guests. Rolando, or did you not have a hand? Oh, he was sending a hand clap emoji. Okay, yes, hand clap emoji for y'all. Um, yo, give it up for Blake and Scott. Thank you so much for being here with us. Um, Air Amplify. We appreciate you. It is 5 p.m. right now, Eastern Time. So, all cohort members, Scott, Blake, will meet you in our other Zoom in 5 minutes. This will be our bio break, everybody. All right. Thank you and good night, everybody.